In London, it's believed to be between 4 and 500 to 1. Um, Number of contracts issued versus bars available. And you can look at right now, there's 45 million ounce free float. Say there's 700 million ounces in the LBMA, in the London market, of which over 500 of it, 550, belong to the ETFs, largely SLV. So that leaves about 140, 150 million ounces that is supposedly called the float, which is debatable as well based upon what's happened recently. But if we take it at face value, there's 2 billion ounces in contracts out there that could stand for delivery against 140 to 150 million ounces there. Doesn't add up at all. And so it's the rumor has been between 3 and 400 paper contracts for every 1 ounce, but who really knows? A lot. I don't know the exact number, but I would argue it's pretty darn close to the lowest number they've had maybe ever or in a very, very long time. And, you know, people are taking possession of silver out of Shanghai as well. Their public is. And so they're incentivizing it. Yeah. And, you know, the piggy banks are running dry everywhere. And it's not just London, it's not just COMEX, it's the Shanghai market as well. Um, and that's something I would expect to see continue across the board. The LBMA has its lowest level, maybe in the history of the recorded records or record keeping of the LBMA, 140-year-old exchange, and the same thing is happening now in the Shanghai exchange as well. Yeah, that their levels have been bleeding down every single month.
Okay, so this tightness is not just in one or two nodes; it seems to be in all the nodes.
And not only that, at the same time, China says we're going to limit exports, and the U.S. says it's now a critical mineral, and so it's progressing. It's progressing, and with that, the price is going higher. And with that, you shut down the COMEX because of a server overheating. Because now the rumor was, and I don't even know how the hell this rumor gets any validation. I don't know. The rumor on X is that 400 million ounces were requesting delivery. Now, there's not even that's way more than there's on in the registered category. Not sure where that rumor is coming from. One big Asian trader said, I want 400 million ounces. All I can tell you is this, that these rumors, a lot of them lack substantiation, and a lot of them may be just, just that, a rumor. But I think where there's smoke, there's fire. And the way that I would break it down is that at that level.
In recent months, online speculation has accelerated. Claims of outsized delivery requests and strained exchange infrastructure have circulated widely. While many of these rumors lack proof, they highlight a deeper truth. Large players are increasingly demanding physical metal instead of rolling paper contracts. COMEX has seen delivery volumes far above historical norms, with minimal media attention despite the implications. When major U.S. institutions quietly take large amounts of gold and silver off the exchange, it raises serious questions about confidence. These trends suggest that physical settlement, once rare, is becoming a recurring signal of stress within an over-leveraged system.
You're seeing shortages and strain in the system, and rehypothecation in London will be the death of them. And, it's true. Big money is I think for the first time understanding that physical possession is the way to go, getting it off of the exchanges, taking possession, buying it, and standing for delivery. This is what's different about this market. Nobody stood for delivery my whole career, and now you're seeing it every single month. And I guess the exclamation point to me is that the amount of metal coming into COMEX every single month, it's different when I say the central banks around the world. People kind of lacks it lacks the oomph because it's not happening here. When I tell you it's 4 feet of snow in Death Valley in July, what's happening on COMEX right now, we've never seen these kind of deliveries, and the lack of any questioning it, by any of the mainstream, it's crazy to me, unless it's all by design, because it's very, very, very unusual, and it should be front and center news. Because what does it really mean when you're seeing this kind of volume of gold and silver, the antithesis to the dollar? What does it really mean when the biggest money in the United States is doing that and no one's asking who it is?
Right.
So in London, it's believed to be between 4 and 500 to 1. Number of contracts issued versus bars available. And you can look at right now there's 45 million ounce free float. Say there's 700 million ounces in the LBMA, in the London market, of which over 500 of it, 550, belong to the ETFs, largely SLV. So that leaves about 140, 150 million ounces that is supposedly called the float, which is debatable as well based upon what's happened recently. But if we take it at face value, there's 2 billion ounces in contracts out there that could stand for delivery against 140 to 150 million ounces there. Doesn't add up at all. And so it's the rumor has been between 300 and 400 paper contracts for every 1 ounce, but who really knows? A lot.
Western exchanges have long operated with large paper-to-physical leverage. In London, analysts estimate that hundreds of paper claims may exist for every ounce theoretically available for delivery. With only a small portion of silver considered free float, the imbalance becomes hard to ignore when global players suddenly insist on actual metal. Meanwhile, Shanghai and other eastern marketplaces operate on a cash and carry structure where bars are fully allocated, traceable, and tied to a verified certificate. The contrast is stark, a trust-based paper system in the West versus a transparency-focused, physically settled model emerging strongly in the East.
And in Shanghai, it's the opposite. So if you want to buy a bar and do something in Shanghai, first of all, it's largely cash and carry. Here's your money, here's your bar.
Mm-hmm.
But first, in order to trade on the Shanghai Exchange, you have to buy a bar from one of the handful of pre-approved deposit or refineries. Then they laser inscribe the certificate number that you will possess on the bar,
On the bar.
1-to-1. And so that's the thing. So much of what I see, Adam, in this world right now centers around lack of trust. Whether you're talking our institutions, the judicial system, the Federal Reserve, our politicians, our banks, our treasury market, our dollar, fiscal irresponsibility, everything. No one trusts anyone. What's going on in the repo market right now? The banks don't trust each other, or they don't trust the collateral. It's trust. And I think what these markets are doing here in the West is losing trust based upon those kind of perceptions of rehypothecation, of servers going out, of all of these things. It lacks trust, and there will come a point, I think, where trust is broken and not repairable. You have institutions like the Shanghai Metals Exchange who's waiting for the opportunity to be the price setting mechanism of the world. And they have done it in a way that inspires legitimacy. Granted, yeah, it's in China. Who trusts China? Well, who trusts us? And if you have a market where the bar is laser inscribed with your certificate, well, that's a good start.
Right.
And I think that's kind of where we're going, and away from the futures exchange into a cash and carry exchange. And that's the way most of them are set up in Dubai and in St. Petersburg and in Moscow and in Singapore. They're cash and carry markets, less futures markets.
Much of today's financial tension can be traced to a collapse in institutional trust. Banks hesitate to lend to one another in repo markets, central banks face questions about policy credibility, and markets increasingly distrust the collateral backing financial instruments. Metals are no exception. Server outages, settlement delays, and opaque reporting deepen suspicion at a time when transparency is essential. Eastern exchanges have capitalized on this by positioning themselves as more robust alternatives. As confidence erodes further, the world may see a shift away from futures-heavy Western systems toward physical settlement hubs, gaining traction across Asia and Eurasia.
And that's why there'll be a battle at some point between and that's the thing. Price has been suppressed for so long, and then you get it. So look at it this way. I kind of look at the why more than the what, right? The what is, yes, silver's been suppressed, but why? Why do eight Western banks have maintained the largest concentrated short position in the history of 1,000 plus commodities traded, the largest ever on the exchange? Why? Why would they have this massive short position in silver? Because it's worth more than the dollar value or the dollars used to purchase it would imply. And for many reasons, whether it's a military industrial complex or not, the point I'm getting at is that they've exerted an awful lot of effort to keep the price of silver, the lid upon it. And I've said for years, the last several years, the countries around the world have become sophisticated and coordinated and wealthy and motivated. And they understand that the key to this, the glitch in the system, is the delivery mechanism. It's kind of like the first Star Wars, where there was that one little hole in the Death Star.
Yeah.
No one thought about it. Well, no one thought that the delivery mechanism would be the death of the system. If you don't allow delivery, you don't have a futures market. So they did it, and it never was exploited until now. And the ability to naked short something when you can stand for delivery, and the entities taking the other side are as wealthy and sophisticated as you are, you got a problem. These countries weren't when these exchanges were founded, and through all the way up till recently, these countries had no desire to challenge the West at all. And this is how you beat them, using their own markets and their own rules against them. And you see one of these banks fail to deliver, well, that will have a reverberation through the entire ecosystem, because these banks have their fingers in every pie, not just the metals pie. And it's a scary thing. You could also see one of the banks that have been shorting it forever break ranks and say, look, we can't do this anymore. We're out. Cover their own interests, and then the whole thing starts to spiral. And we're right there. I mean, I do believe we are right there, because these short positions that these banks have, they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars in the case of Bank of America, according to Ed Steer, every dollar that the price goes up. So, yeah, it's a high stakes game, and they have some real challengers right now.
For years, a handful of Western banks have maintained one of the largest concentrated short positions in commodities history, anchored in silver. The question is no longer whether the price has been suppressed, but why such an effort was made for so long. Rising industrial demand, geopolitical realignments, and greater financial sophistication among emerging markets have exposed vulnerabilities in the delivery mechanism that underpins Western futures markets. If even one major bank fails to deliver in a physical squeeze, shockwaves could hit multiple sectors. Meanwhile, as prices rise, short positions face mounting losses, accelerating the potential for rapid unraveling.
Which then pushes up the price, and everyone else starts to cover or gets margin called. Right. That's exactly how it would happen. That's kind of what happened with the London gold pool, that break ranks and then everyone fends for themselves. There was a coordinated effort by all of the Western institutions to do this for a very long time. You listen to a guy like Tom Luongo, and it gets very interesting when you hear his take that, the rumor that Trump is out to get the European aristocrats. And in fact, there was a really interesting article that just came out the other day, and I think it was on Zero Hedge, basically saying that is the case. That's why when President Trump announced the Epstein files would be released, he specifically targeted J.P. Morgan in his speech on this, on his tweet or whatever, saying, they're involved. Well, the article went on to say that what he's doing is akin to what Kennedy tried to do. By issuing the stablecoin bill, you're taking money creation away from the Federal Reserve and giving it back to the Treasury. Very scary. And at the same time, JP Morgan represents the old aristocrat money.
Metals markets no longer operate in isolation. They intersect with politics, monetary sovereignty, and global power struggles. Some analysts argue that U.S. political actors are challenging entrenched financial interests tied to European and legacy banking structures. Debates around stablecoin legislation, Treasury authority, and control over money creation have intensified these rifts. If geopolitical strategies include draining London metal stocks or reshaping global settlement pathways, the stakes extend far beyond silver itself. What we're witnessing may be part of a broader realignment: East versus West, old financial power versus emerging forces, and physical value versus paper promises in a rapidly shifting world.
And that's why he's going. Now, that's kind of fits what Tom Luongo was saying. He's saying that Trump believes that these entities were involved in any potential election interference in the previous election and or the color revolution, all aimed at Trump. And that's why he said, no, it's about tariffs, bring all the metal back, when it never was about tariffs, to drain the LBMA, to put stress or worse on the Bank of England and all the European banks that are now wickedly short in London. Whereas all the metal that came back, maybe a lot of it was used to cover the actual short positions of the United States banks that are short. When they short in the US, they go long in London, right? That's how they do it, and to offset their balance sheet. So Trump's, threatening tariffs, they're still on the same side, going back and forth. Yeah, we need that metal back to cover these positions, but don't worry, it'll flow back. It's not flowing back. Some did, but it's not. The point of it is that this is deeper than I think we all know. But there are some people like Luongo who has a very interesting take on this, that this is about United States versus the old money, and Trump is trying to undermine them. And when you see him issue the stablecoin bill, which in essence allows the Treasury through the stablecoin issuance to take control of the money, that doesn't make the old money very happy. So could it be? Maybe. I'm just saying you got to kind of think of it all. And it does make sense on some levels, not to go down that rabbit hole, but interesting thought experiment.